Alright, what's up everybody, it's Schplef, and today we are talking about the differences between the classic aim and the updated aim. So let's get right to the point. The biggest difference between classic aim and updated aim is basically the speed at which your character rotates. So the classic aim is a flat sensitivity no matter how light or hard you're pushing the stick. The updated aim is adjusted so that the smaller movements on the stick are going to be faster and the larger movements on the stick are going to be slower. If you are new or struggling with aiming and are looking to mix things up, maybe think about picking the updated version. If you are already using classic and have no problems, you aren't really struggling or anything, or you already like where your sensitivity is at, I would just suggest sticking with that version. That's the quick rundown for you guys. For those of you that are short on time or whatever I don't know, like if you're clicking on my video, you're obviously going to be staying longer than normal. So if you got like a minute and you got to go jerk off or whatever, there you go. The rest of the video, I'm going to go into detail about the two different aim types. So, just hang tight. I've used classic aim for most of my playtime, but when Ubisoft released the new updated aim, I figured I'd give it a shot. I spent about a week using the new updated aim, and here are my thoughts and opinions on it. I'll start with classic since it's been in the game the longest, and as I mentioned earlier, classic aim is a flat sensitivity. Sure, you can move the aim stick around and your character will slowly rotate, but the sensitivity isn't tied to how slow or fast you are moving the aim stick. What would be the benefits of choosing classic aim over the updated aim? Well, classic aim is essentially raw input on console, and I know there's inherently mouse acceleration, air quotes, in the game, but this is the best example I can give. Essentially, the classic setting is going to make your aim quick and snappy. This is going to allow for better flicks and more control to a certain extent. These two pointers mainly apply to short-range engagements, as the even sensitivity allows for stopping on a dime and easier control of horizontal movement. This is especially useful when playing the peek your corner game in a 1v2 to 5 situation. Those quick and snappy movements will benefit you more when aiming from angle to angle than, say, the updated aim, where it's going to adjust according to how fast you're moving the stick, and it's going to be much harder for you to kind of snap to your target without overshooting or over aiming. Furthermore, because there is no acceleration, you will most likely have an easier time getting used to your aim because your aim movements will all be the same. Let's say all your horizontal, vertical, and ADS settings are set at 50, so if you move up, you move left, you move right, you aim in, you move up, left, and right, they're all going to be the same movements, and you can get used to that very quickly. Now, this is provided that all your sensitivity settings are the same. And I know a lot of console players use different horizontal and vertical settings and ADS settings, and this adds another variable to the equation. Obviously, the lower vertical sensitivity will allow for better aim control, and if you opt to make your ADS sensitivity super low, then when you aim in, you're going to have an easier time keeping on your target. And the whole point of having those sensitivity settings is so when you're not aimed in, you snap to your target and then you aim in and you can more easily control your recoil. The problem with just having a flat sensitivity across the board is that you're going to have more trouble as your engagements get farther and farther away due to the flat sensitivity. These small adjustments will get progressively more difficult as you bump your sensitivity to higher levels. And to counter this, as I've said, many console players have opted to reduce their vertical sensitivity to make countering the recoil easier, as well as their ADS sensitivity. So if somebody's strafing across the screen really quickly and you aim in, it's going to be very hard for you to go from hip firing to ADSing and being able to adjust for that change in sensitivity. Now, the updated version basically gives you best of both worlds. Now, how the updated version works is that, let's say you have an enemy a decent distance out. The updated version isn't that much different from classic in terms of actual aim. And I know this because after doing some testing and trying out the aim myself, I didn't have much issue when it came to aiming at people and shooting them because I was already used to the sensitivity that I had originally. And those two aren't that much different. The problem is, as the enemy moves closer and closer and he gets right up in your face, the large movements in the stick is going to cause your sensitivity to be lower. Now, I know that's really strange, and I was thinking the same thing. You're shooting at the guy from far away, sensitivity is fine and dandy. He gets closer and he strafes to the right, and you have to move your aim to the right to match his position. Your sensitivity is going to gradually drop, and this is going to cause you to undershoot him, and you'll most likely die as a consequence. So personally, I don't like the updated aim, and I think you should only use it in specific cases, such as the ones I mentioned at the beginning of the video. But I'll start with the pros of the enhanced aim. So I think the area that it excels most at is when you're fighting an enemy at a kind of longer range engagement. Because of the way the aim works, where You know, the slower you move your stick, the faster your aim is, and the faster you move your stick, the slower your aim is, which is really ass backwards. I don't know what's going on with that. When he strafes to the right, that drop in sensitivity that you get is going to allow you to keep track of him easier. But as he moves closer, the problems with the aim is going to become more and more noticeable. I think the sensitivity setting would be more suited to those that are maybe just starting the game, or those who have a lot of knowledge of the game but have poor aim. I've seen that a lot on Reddit where people are like, oh man, I've got 800 hours in the game, I know everything about every map, I know good peaks, I know high traffic areas, I know the best angles, I know the windows to throw C4 out of or whatever the fuck. It's like, but my aim sucks. It's like, well, you know, maybe it's a good idea that you should switch to the updated aim, because that would benefit you more than having classic aim, because classic aim can get a little confusing sometimes. You know, this sounds pretty good on paper, but in reality, it's not so great. Any engagement that is shorter than mid-range will be an absolute bitch of a fight. You don't need small adjustments at close range, you need wide flicks with tons of recoil control. And if you have the updated aim, it's going to absolutely fuck your aim up when your opponent strafes across your screen and you're trying to keep up with him while controlling your gun. As most of Rainbow Six Siege is close range engagements, I think this reason alone makes an updated version just not worth using. Another problem is that the amount of sensitivity is extremely varied, so you're going from slow to fast while also accounting for the change in character rotation, and also accounting for any variations you have in your different aim settings, such as your horizontal, vertical, and ADS. This will make adjusting your sensitivity much harder than the classic version, in my opinion. And finally, once you switch over to the updated aim, you will have to bump your sensitivity up to match the same speed as classic aim. Because of the way the sensitivities work, when you move to the updated aim, your initial aim speed is going to be much lower. This is going to be very hard for even someone who's new at the game to get used to that. The new players are going to look up, what's the best aim setting you could possibly do? And they're going to be like, oh, so I have to drop my vertical and bring my ADS sensitivity down so that when I aim, I can control my recoil easier. And they're going to be like, okay, great. And then they're going to see this updated aim, and they're going to be like, based on the description, they're going to be like, oh, a better version of classic aim or whatever. And then they're going to switch over to that. So now you have like 6 different fucking adjustments to your sensitivity that you have to get used to, and it's just going to be a pain in the fucking ass. Overall, the updated version just feels jerky and, for lack of a better term, unresponsive, even though it's supposedly supposed to be a more smoother experience. I think the updated aim allows for better accuracy, but due to the game being mainly at close range, the loss of close range accuracy puts you at a serious disadvantage. This is a new way to aim after the game has been out since 2015, and I think switching over would introduce a learning curve that I'd imagine most of you don't want to go through again. The game's already hard in and of itself, if I said that correctly. And I think this extra variable is going to make it much harder for you to learn the maps, the angles, the nade spots, the bomb locations, the droning spots, the best rappel windows, the best runouts, the best peaks, the high traffic areas. And then suddenly you got new sensitivity settings and you're like, wow, this is a whole fuckload of information and I don't know how to handle it, and they're just going to leave. So, moral of the story is, if you suck at aiming, think about switching to the updated version. If you're already using classic and you like where your sensitivity is, you aren't having aiming issues, just stick with the classic version. So I think that's going to do it for this episode. Please follow me on Twitter for video updates. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching.